All right. So you want the open?
Well, yeah, I think the main thing here is we're starting this thing right now.
We've already started.
So the Dome Dynasty download is really cool because really we've had a Bang Bang download here.
Yep.
And so what we did is added the football element to it, which is really cool because it's hard to really imagine all the different partners that we have in this, not just the partners that we work with at Bang Bang, but, you know, starting out with, can't do it without the foundation of what we did at Channel 5 for years. The Friday Night Blitz was a big part of that. And then Jesse Landau and I do Dome Dynasty, and that's been a really cool element. And then we partner up with the Iowa High School Sports Network to do their social media and all that. So that makes it really fun to have all of those people involved. But at the end of the day, there's even more than that involved in this process. And we'll go through some of our partners here, but we can't get there and do those things without all these relationships. And the number one is the Iowa Football Coaches Association. We've shown you some of the things that we've done to help promote one of their biggest things with the Ed Thomas Family Foundation Award. So it's just really cool to have all those, and I think we get those through relationships through football coaches.
Yeah,
and I know you're proud of it.
Oh, yeah. Relationships with coaches over the years was always fun, whether that be Gary Swenson, Zelenovic, who was in the 5A championship this year, Eric Trudeau, you know, being able to get some tearjerker moments out of him over the years was always fun. But it was just everyone appreciated what we did for Blitz, and that was, I mean, you guys really set the foundation, you and John Walters, back in, 2000, I believe it was, and that was kind of the catalyst for everything. I was just lucky enough to walk into 5 in 2014 and get to inherit some of that greatness and be around it, and it was just a blast to go to places, and that's kind of what we get to do now, is go places where we typically wouldn't go. And whether that be like I mean, I could have told you I'd never go to Liberty Center, Iowa, back in the day had it not been for football. So it was cool.
And I think that the Iowa foundation of the schools, and it's what separates Iowa. It's why when people are across the country and you connect with somebody from Iowa, it definitely comes back to the school and the football program, whether you had a great football program or an okay football program, you know, and you and I can go on and on about that. I think it's what makes Bing Bang special too, is there's that way to connect. That's what Brandon, you know, my brother's always done a great job of, is making that connection through the towns. And so the Ed Thomas, where you're from thing is a big deal. And so some of our partners here, John, I'll let you highlight them too. We set some sound. Hey, people are honking out there. They love us. They love Dome Dynasty and the download. But Total Quality is one of them. And so we'll read and talk about some of the things that we're doing with some of our special partners and what we'll continue to do in our content network here. So
yeah, Total Quality, obviously a big family-owned lawn care company out of or right here in Central Iowa. So go check out Charlie and the crew over there. Yeah,
they're awesome. And we've got our own person here you need to call. If you want to be part of this, or you need some help with some drone shots, or if you need anything,
better call Mel.
Yeah.
Better call Mel. No, Melanie will take care of you. Melanie Lane, she is our VP of sales now here, and so she's going to get you set up with anything you need, and whether that's website design, graphic design, video, drone, photo, headshots, whatever that is.
We're open for business, baby.
Sizzle videos. I mean, anything you can think of, anything we can help you think of, certainly going to have some fun with it.
Yeah, I think of Donnie, you know, from Madrid, you know, in the open of my Blitz Extra, you know, where he slams the sign. He said, "We're open for business. Better call Mel." So, and we have had some existing sponsors through the Dome Dynasty that Jesse and I did with Hy-Vee and Iowa Radiology. Iowa Radiology, just one of those companies that, you know, they strive for a lot of excellence. They do have Saturday appointments, whether it's, you know, for an injury or mammogram. They cover it all. What I like is they have specific experts who have a lot of dialogue on things. So you're really going to get special treatment there. So make sure you contact Iowa Radiology. One of the things that we did at the Dome that we showed was this Midwest Wheeler stuff. We might do a Wheeler of the Year. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to.
But you got to go to Midwest Wheel.
Yeah, that was a great time going over there to the east side. I'd say the northeast side, probably. Just east or north of Grandview there. But really cool place, great people. That was the big thing I noticed, just great people all around. More than happy to stop and take some time when we were working on our video over there.
They got a lot of stuff. I don't know what all's in there. They
a lot of parts.
They've got some amazing accessories, and they know what they're doing at MidwestWheel.com. And then Murphy Tower's on the radar. This Murphy Tower High Flyers that we showed. Yeah.
What was your favorite high flyer?
The two kids from Williamsburg were pretty special.
Yeah.
We'll hit on them when we talk 3A football, but they got the most views and likes and all that good stuff.
Naturally, right? Those Williamsburg kids.
Yeah,
so.
they had a great run, and we look forward to talking about that. We'll start off with 8-player, but and then you and I have already talked about the Ed Thomas stuff. I think the packages or the content that we'll show you in our 2 downloads here at the end of the season, we'll show some response from Ken Winkler talking about the Ward, a former coach, and Bob Howard, who is one of the greatest, both these 2 of the greatest coaches talking about Ed Thomas at some point. And then, Wyckoff's Heating and Cooling, a part of that. Job and his crew, family owned too. There's a lot of great companies out there in Iowa that can do your heating and cooling, but Wyckoff Industries pretty special. So they're
a great slogan the jingle, jingle. Wyckoff.
Yeah, and they're easy to find, but you got to spell it right. WYCKOFF.
Yes.
Comfort.com.
Boom.
Easy way to. That'll segue us right into some of the things that we're doing here with 8-player.
Yeah.
You love 8-player, don't you?
8-player is such a blast.
I feel like you would have been a good 8-player player.
I would have been great at 8-player because
you'd have been the kicker.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, 8-player
You would have.
I probably would have. Someone has to be the kicker.
Yeah.
I go back to North Dakota. They do 9-man football instead of 8-player, and so 9-man was fun enough to learn.
Why did they? Yeah, all these. There's
just
even
one extra guy out there. So you still have your 3-down lineman and then a tight end in there instead of just like I don't know. It's weird, but I loved it. And so then you come to Des Moines or come back to Iowa and you get into 8-player football and just totally changes the dynamic. Smaller field, obviously, but there are kids in 8-player football who can go on and do great things that are just as dynamic as some of those 5A players.
Well, what's cool about it is they're doing it for their town. And that's the thing. I really did a good job of recognizing that and keeping those small towns. And I think it was key in the Iowa model of what we want to be in Iowa. It was key to save some of these school districts.
The Cams, the Audubons, like you get into some of those old school out west teams. Now, we had some good ones out of
Let's go to the Iowa Radiology scoreboard. You run down the semis and the finals.
Yeah, let's check out those 8-player scores really quick. Let's start in semifinals. Bishop Garrigan topped Winfield Mount Union 34-20. What'd you see in that game?
Well, really, we were thinking Winfield Mount Union was this juggernaut. I mean, they beat Don Bosco to get there, and they had this Buffington kid that is a special player and going to Iowa. All Algona did was they basically were Iowa. They just stuck with the program. They kept doing it. They got the Midwest Wheeler of the game and Rothler, and they just wore them out in the second half and got a big win in that game. So that was huge. And we'll talk more about their coach and their coaching staff. I got a little nugget before the championship.
And then, of course, on the other side of that bracket, Bedford and Gladbrook Rhinebeck. Now, this was a classic.
Yeah, and it came down to the end, and Bedford just found a way to grind it out. Nally and the boys, there's like 15. The coach had him and relatives. A lot of neat people. A lot of people coming up to us saying we've seen what you've been doing, special. A lot of views, but a good win for them to get into that championship against Algona. And Algona got the championship in 1985. Coach Wadley did. And so after that first game, I'm like, I'm going to go talk to him. We really, with what I was doing for Iowa High School Sports Network, I didn't have time to get interviews.
Yeah.
That's why I was thankful when you came up on Friday of the championship. But I'm like, I got to go find him. And it was just great because we naturally have a connection just as coaches. But he got emotional. And we'll wrap this up with that. But what a big win for them. And I think the championship game was dead even. I think if they played 10 times, it might go 5-5. But they just really did not make a lot of mistakes. But here's my favorite thing, John. Of us being, the Friday Night Blitz thing. And coaches, people in Iowa drink beer, right?
Yep, 100%.
We're not talking about our kids or anything like that.
My shirt says it, Dave.
Yeah, I know. This actually, you started this, but I won't name the coach on the Garrigan staff, but I won't name names. It wasn't Coach Wadley, but before the semifinal game, he walks up to me. He goes, "Hey, how many beers you think are And he's probably texting me right now. How many beers do you think are being drank during the Friday Night Blitz on a Friday night?" And I thought, I never even thought about that, but it was a funny.
I had quite a few, responsibly. That's just how many people I feel like watched us. So.
Yeah, between the coaches and the parents. And so I thought that was kind of cool because I love it when people make a connection like that. So that was cool. But congratulations to the Golden Bears.
Yep.
They get their second championship, their first one since 1985.
39-30 the final in that one.
And
So
Coach Nally and Bedford had a great year. They were looking for their first since 1992. We had a couple of really great total quality coaching moments with him in wins and losing. But we're going to end this segment and send it and get that reaction that we got from Coach Wadley after the semifinal win.
It meant a lot, especially with this group of kids. They are so special. Without crying, I don't know if I can tell you how special they are, but they're such a good group of kids, and they believe in everything, and they believe in everything that we say. And I mean, this group of seniors never won a homecoming game and has never had a winning season until this year. And they've worked and they've gone after it, and they tried and tried and tried and hung in there and been relentless with everything they've done. And today they were relentless, and what an example they lead by. I'll tell you, it's awesome. And these kids, I tell you, they're incredible, and I'm so happy for them. I just can't tell you how happy I am for them.
That win, though, is that maybe a win that just defines who you are? That was a cool win, wasn't it?
Well, I'm going to give you that a little bit, and that defines who these kids are, because, you know, we've had adversity, and I told the kids, we're playing the number one team in the state. There's going to be adversity tonight. There's going to be adversity. It's going to happen. You got to flush it, and you got to come back. And we always say, what are we going to play? We're going to play 8 seconds at a time. We're going to 45 breath, and we're going to come back. We're going to play 8 seconds as hard as we can. And our kids played hard today.
yeah, so really good stuff there, obviously, from 8 player. Then you jump up to Class A, and Class A probably doesn't get enough credit for being as competitive as they are, top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm looking at 1A and 2A, and when you look at those teams in there, they kind of all have played each other in various years.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to have a playoff.
Yeah.
And maybe even all the way up to 3A, because I just feel like
The Williamsburg playing Van Meter, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
Harlan getting in there a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, this Brit thing is.
Well,
but let's go to the Iowa Radiology scoreboard, and you run through it for us.
Yeah, first off, really big congrats to Madrid on getting back to the Dome. Brock Hinkle getting his team back to where his dad took them so many times, and
it was my first chance to see the Wicker kid.
Yeah.
And whether we talk about Cooper DeJean or Parker Hesse or some of these kids that the Ryle kids, some of these kids that are just great athletes, maybe playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And Weisskopf did it for Williamsburg. I'm jumping ahead, but it's really cool sometimes when we just recognize that this might be my best player. Maybe it's not the Klunder kid that we're going to talk about too, but Wicker's just a great football player, and so he'll be back. Absolutely.
He was only a junior this year, but West Hancock does get the better of Madrid in this one, 39-14. That team is a really good football team, and they showed that even in the championship game, which we'll run through that score in a second.
Well, the program is just, it is what it is, and we'll come up. I'll talk about some numbers here at the end, John, and I'll even share them with you. But in the other semifinal,
Woodbury Central, I mean, they're a perennial.
Yeah.
Takes down East Buchanan, the Bucks, 28-20, and East Buchanan gave them a game. Just Woodbury Central had been there before.
I truly believe Woodbury Central won a championship in 1980. I think this is the best Woodbury Central team they've ever had, and I think East Buchanan, before the playoffs, before 1972, I don't know, I think they would tell you this is the best team they ever had.
Yeah.
They have Cody Fox, offensive lineman, John, and usually we don't really look at a lot of the and Iowa pork producers with Iowa High School Sports Network does a great job of recognizing hogs of the game in the championship.
Loved it.
You can go look at that on the social media, but every player on East Buchanan, I mean, I'm still sure that their town is like, man, this was our year, but you have to have a year where maybe the West Hancocks aren't good and the Woodburys aren't good to have that. It's tough because this team, I think, this East Buchanan team would have won championships almost any other year. It was the best team I've ever seen them have, and I'm sure they feel. I'm sure
that's a tough spot to be in, isn't it?
I'm sure Coach Alden's like, man, and I think the same could be said for Woodbury Central. Talk about perfect quarterbacks. Whether you see Vandenberg or Brett Meyer, the kids that we've seen over the years that are high level at the Dome. Klender's as good as we've seen. He's really special and he's physical. I think he's going to Southwest Minnesota State.
Okay.
He's really special, and I think they thought for sure they'd beat Britt.
Yeah.
And that was really cool, like Gable's always said, when you got two wrestlers who think they're going to win, and that was the case. And that just came down to the last play of the last game, and we've talked about there's like 4 Smiths on the
everyone in the family on the same team, right?
On the West Hancock team, and Michael really was the physical, leader, the body type that led them. But yeah, John, there 73 they won the title, 96, 19, 21, 23 now, but since they won the title in 19, they're 59-4.
Holy cow!
So I mean, it's
a dynasty. That's Bama-like numbers right there.
And teams go through these periods.
Yep.
And Madrid's been through that period right now. Van Meter's going through it.
Yeah.
Regina had that.
Dowling.
Right now, Polk's going through it.
Yeah.
So it's really special, and you see it when it's in there. It's hard to break that. And I really don't know if what it is about Britt other than Mark Sanger is very humble, very special, and since he's taken over his dad, he's done a great job. So when I look at this and we wrap up now the scoreboard, the one thing I want to go to is just Britt had a Midwest Wheeler piece for us, and they had a high flyer. They actually threw the ball a few times.
Oh, how about that?
So before we come back and do the next class, let's take a look at those.
Okay.
Mitchell Smith dropping back. They're going to go for it. Have a man open. A diving catch. What a catch made by Kellen Smith at the 1-yard line. That was on 4th and long.
Well, those were some big plays, obviously, in Class A, and I mean, those are right up there with some of the best I've seen in the last handful of years, at least back to my TV days.
And we talked about crossing over teams and classes. We forgot all about Grundy.
Yeah.
Who's also on this magical run.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's run through the Class 1A Iowa Radiology scoreboard for us really quick. Grundy Center topped Columbus Catholic 42-7 in the semifinals.
They played earlier in the year, and it was close.
It was closer, but then Grundy Center showed up big time at the Dome. On the other side, MFL Marmac, they beat up on Underwood 41-28. Underwood was a really good team this year, but MFL just had all the pieces to make it back to that championship game. But then no one was really touching Grundy. We kind of knew that, I think, going into the Dome. We thought that Columbus Catholic could give them a test, but didn't hold up there. And so championship game 42-0. Grundy Center just hammered MFL.
Probably neat that they didn't have to play Britt, but you'd like to see that game.
You should almost make 8-player go up and play A, and then make 1A play 2A.
Yeah, it would be fun. If we didn't have Thanksgiving, we could do that. But yeah, Grundy showing up the way they did. This is a special kid, a legacy kid in Colin Gordon. Ben Gordon's cousin.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. It's kind of cool that the Gordons and Ben Gordon, for most of you that don't know, Van Meter running back in a special family. But
cool.
I just had so much fun covering MFL Marmac.
Yeah.
They were wild. They were crazy. When they won their semifinal, they were going nuts.
Yeah.
They had few injuries, though.
Did they?
They had a few injuries in that semi. I don't know what the impact would have been. Sometimes you lose one or two kids.
Yeah.
Nobody was probably beating the total package that, and we talk about Colin Gordon, but the total package that the Spartans had at Grundy Center this year. I mean, Coach Zajic just does a great job, and Justin Knack's much underrated running back, but they were special. And the Iowa Beef does a player of the tournament.
Okay.
Kind of the end of the tournament. Look at the two games, and I thought Colin Gordon was definitely a candidate for it.
Should have been, yeah.
I think it ended up being C.J. Spiller, which made sense. He had like 9 touchdowns or whatever. But Colin Gordon, what a career! They'll never be able to take it away from him. What a humble, smart, great feel for the game kid.
Yeah.
And we talked about him as being one of our high flyers, and maybe we take a look at some of his highlights here as we get out of Class 1A. Anything else about 1A that you?
No, I think you hit on something really cool though with MFL Marmac. You talked about how wild they were after their semifinal win.
It was like a 70s or 80s, like we getting out of town,
right? And that's kind of what you come to appreciate is like obviously those perennials, they show up every year. They know what to expect, but then you get those teams that are there once every 2 decades or once a generation.
They were there.
And you got 6 generations showing up of people that are like, I'm here for it because we may never see this again.
Yeah.
And they go absolutely berserk for it. And that's what I think the Dome really is all about to me is like, it's those memories and those lasting like lifetime tokens that stick in your head for the rest of your life.
Before we look at some of Colin Gordon's stuff, you've been up there enough. I noticed this year, and I don't know, I don't get attendance figures, but did you feel like on that Friday that you were there that it felt like that things were above what you had pre-COVID?
It felt pre-COVID again. I'd say I think things have settled back in. Maybe it wasn't quite to the, big time of Valley Dowling being at the Dome. But, I mean, I think Southeast Polk Ankeny certainly showed up in the 5A game. The 1A or the 2A game, I'm so used to Van Meter being a 1A team, but the 2A game, Van Meter shows up so well too. And so, like, I thought the numbers looked great. There's just nothing like the Dome. It gets loud. I think they've done a great job keeping it up there. I think it belongs inside that time of year. I've seen there's some states like Wisconsin that play their championship games outdoors at the UW Stadium in Madison there, and it's like that'd be a little cold.
It would be and that's a bigger story that maybe we can talk to some of our coaches about in the offseason, the dynamics of what that would look like if you didn't play in the Dome, because I do think it would change the way you'd set up your program or how you might build your team that year based on your personnel on whether you'd be outside or inside, because it's a different. I'm going to switch this up, though. We've seen a lot of Colin Gordon, and I think you can go on Dome Dynasty social media. You can go on our Bing Bang and see that. For one of our Midwest Wheelers of the game after their victory and against Underwood were the kids from MFL Marmac. Let's take a look at that.
All right.
Bentine on the keeper, trying to get outside. He does get outside, makes a man go down across the 40. Blitz Bentine, a touchdown saving tackle from Gus Bayshore. Blitz Bentine takes the snap, hands it off. McHugh on that left side, has the first down, has more than that. Quinn McHugh has himself his 5th touchdown, and the Bulldogs have a 3-score lead.
Now out to Class 2A, Iowa Radiology. The scoreboard here from Iowa Radiology. Let's pull it up. Van Meter topping Monticello in the semis for 2A, 35-21. Central Lyon, Little George Little Rock. I'm sorry. GLR, 28-14 over Spirit Lake there. So really good semifinal. Then championship game, another just absolute.
Oh my gosh.
Like, this one went to the wire, kind of reminiscent of a 3A game I remember back in the day, Pella versus Xavier. Maybe not quite to that dynamic, but still, Van Meter wins.
It was interesting.
It was. Van Meter wins that 2A title after making the jump up a class this year, 24-21, and that game had just electric atmosphere, comeback, big hits, big plays, big runs, big throws.
The best of the best going at it. Before we get there, Van Meter did play well in their semi, and so did Central Lyon. Central Lyon, George Little Rock, they split in basketball, so you always got to put the George Little Rock in there in football. They get a little testy if you don't, but that's okay. I understand. That's a small-town Iowa thing. But Spirit Lake was up 14-0 in that game. And I was sitting there going, that's interesting. Could this be, something that you get concerned about? But then Reese Vanderzee, who did one of the Midwest Wheelers highlights, if you go look at some of our Dome Dynasty, he just took it upon himself. And he's another one of those athletes, like Weisskopf, who we'll talk about with Williamsburg, and Reese Vanderzee going to Iowa to play quarterback, and Zach Letmer last year was their quarterback. It's weird how certain kids, certain programs, but he took it upon himself to really, and Coach Eben's kid was fantastic the whole game. But when I looked at these two, then you're like, okay, Central Lyon, this is a legacy that's been going on a while. Van Meter has always been a proud tradition, but really this 2014 on is when they become the tough man on the block. And, when they beat Regina, a few years ago, that was kind of like, okay, we can do this. And now to go on this tear that they've been on, geez, John, I wrote down some of the numbers. I think in the last 9 years, they're 107-7.
Eric Trudeau's done a heck of a job over there.
I mean, but as we're watching the game, either team was the champion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you were there when the snap happened, and then you said something like the coaches were you were up there talking to some of the coaches, and you gave me some information when you came back that you'd overheard them talking about.
Yeah, and it wasn't even it was Vanderzee quarterback. For them took full ownership. It wasn't even coaches.
Isn't that cool?
He sat there in the post game and said, "Yeah, I walked up to change the snap or change the call, and I didn't like what I saw, and basically they snapped. It was an early snap. He wasn't expecting it, and on a 4th down, I think we all felt robbed a little bit, because you want that game to end on a great defensive play or a great offensive play where someone just puts it on their back, and it just deflated the entire. I think both sides, like even Van Meter, while yes they won, they were thrilled they won. I think some of those fans would have loved to see it end on a high note instead of having a team lose the game that way.
This is what makes both those programs great.
Yeah.
Is if the refs would have went and said, "Hey, do you guys want to redo this?" I think Van Meter would have said no, but they might have been like, "Yeah."
Trudeau might have said, "Let's go for it.
Let's redo
Why
this.
not? Run it back."
We'll have to ask Eric about that sometime. But it was because I think they're both so buttoned up and they're both so good at what they do. And at the end of the day, the great thing about culture is the kid that snapped it and all that. He'll never have to worry about it. It's not they were champions, and but it was wow.
Yeah, and the Vanderzee kid is going to have a great college career. I mean, he's not.
What's he going to be, a DN, do you think?
He's got to be a
what's
defensive.
He gonna be?
I mean, he's like 6'3", 6'4".
I hate projecting because I know, but
who knows what Iowa could do with him? Maybe make him a tight end.
Boy,
he could be a dangerous tight end.
Great tight end, wouldn't he?
And so I think he's got a ton of potential. Now I will say, still the most dynamic player I've ever seen play against Van Meter is Cooper DeJean. Put the team on his back. I don't think that's any secret to anybody. But still, Van Meter 4 titles over this stretch that they've had. You mentioned the last 9 years, and it's just been wild what Eric Trudeau's been able to do. And you got to remember, too, when I talked to him post-game, this was his last year with the son on the team. And so for him, that no one else wanted to ask the question, but you know me, I'm not afraid to do that, and that made him a little emotional, too. So
well, let's take a listen to that.
Yeah.
I always think of all these guys as an extended family and his sons, obviously, and they're going to do great things beyond football, his fathers and brothers and uncles. But it's been awfully special to have 3 sons on the team, and for each one of them to go out on top puts a capper on it. But it's been a lot of fun, and this kind of closes one chapter for me personally. But Van Meter football is strong, and it'll go on.
So that was cool. I'm glad you got to get up there and talk.
You've been in this spot before with your daughters, obviously playing softball at State. What's that like? Obviously, you've got to detach yourself from being dad at times, but when it's all said and done, what's that like?
I don't know. It's kind of weird because I never really have had I've always had a sense of who I am and where I'm at in those moments. And I've been lucky enough to not been a coach and been in the media. And then, but the first time it hit me, helped prepare me for the next 2. So, and so Shelby was on that. Well, the one time I got the most emotional was that year. It was her junior year. Our teams were going to split. We got 3rd at the State, and my oldest was there. And so, it didn't hit me because I was being interviewed by somebody I knew. But I know that since I've been around and you've been around, when we interview some of these coaches, then that moment can land.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
It happened to me, and it just kind of happened without me knowing it. And then even Shelby's dad, Todd, was like, he knew it. He could see it was happening to me. And I was and then you sink into it and you let it happen. And I wasn't Ben Stiller, like crying or anything like that. But I think that's why you do it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to be a part of that. And also, I think when you're interviewing them, you do a good job of just letting it go.
And I think for coaches too, I think Eric Trudeau, I think just about any coach would tell you this, good coach, most of their team feels like sons or daughters to them, whatever sport it is.
I think that's true.
And so I think there is a coping mechanism. Now there is a difference, obviously, when you're taking the one child home with you, or you're seeing them at home every night too, and you have those conversations about the sport. And some coaches have told me, like, we don't talk football or we don't talk softball at the dinner table. We just live our lives outside of that.
Yeah, I didn't really have to. I mean, we had our moments where we would pick out certain things, or if they come to you. But I think, we didn't have a lot of softball talk in our house. But
lucky for your wife, right?
Yeah, it was very. It's really interesting. But back to your point, they are our kids. I mean, I don't think that we have a lot of coaching experience in here to be a part of that. And in the last 2 or 3 years that I've been coaching, I've probably been as sad to see a group of girls go that I ever have. I mean, the seniors that the last couple of years have just been like, wow. Yeah. So it does sink in, but when it hits you, it's a different kind of like, ooh, yeah.
You even see it with the Ferences. You see it with Matt Campbell, certainly. Yep. I think you see it with Stepsis over at Drake, and certainly Farley up at UNI too. So I mean, it's not just a high school thing; it's certainly a college thing too. So
we'll wrap up this first section. We'll go back to great topic. We're talking about Ed Thomas and that faith family football. Wyckoff's helping us out. Being a part of that with Coach Thomas and one of his best friends who we highlighted. And you can see it on our Dome Dynasty social media if you haven't seen it already, but we're going to show it here on our download with one of his best friends in the whole world, Ken Winkler, talking about the award, and that's going to wrap it up.
Great.
All right, buddy.
Supposed to have been here on Tuesday, and then it ended up down in Des Moines, then it was at Boone.
I think, what Ed stands for is something that needs to be, his legacy needs to be carried on, And our concern was that as time goes on, people are going to forget not only what a great football coach he is or was and what he stood for as far as his character and his love for football, but his love for his kids and other people's kids and the profession in general. We don't want that to die, And his slogan of faith, family, and football, he lived that. And he lived that every day, and we want kids today to know that it's okay to be that way. It's all right to be that way. It's all right to wear your faith on your sleeve. It's all right to care about your family, and it's okay to love football. The story about Ed and the tornado and his involvement in helping the community rebuild, I think is something that needs to be kept alive, for what he did to kind of pull the community together. And what I'll always remember about Ed is he was a great friend. He was an absolute fabulous friend, and how much he cared about coaches, football, kids, and community, which was obvious with the thing. He was a very caring guy, and he wanted to do the right thing, and he wanted everybody else to do the right thing.
It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Cause baby, I feel real good and I wish I would. Watch out now. It's gotta be against the law to look this damn good. Watch out now. Everybody watch out. Watch out now. I'm ready for a good time, and I came to groove. The whole band's here and we came to move. Got a fresh haircut and 2 new shoes. We're here all night like we got nothing to lose. I'm coming out the jacket cause we're turning up the heat. I wanna see you clapping when you get up out your seat. It's time to make it happen when we hit these streets. I'm coming in hot and I can't be beat. Watch out now.